All right. So what we're doing tonight is first off going live for the first time in a long time on this Twitch channel. So you're going to get a notification that says that I've gone live, and hopefully people pop in and take a look, and you're welcome to talk in the chat. My father has put out or finished another book of short stories. The last time that there was a book of short stories added to the collection was about 6 years ago. This is going to be the second book, and I went ahead and I did the cover for it. So I thought one of the things I could do for a Twitch live stream is to show you how to create a cover for an Amazon book. So if you do have any ambitions to publish on Amazon, or you wanted to learn how to do some of the book covers that people use, I'm going to be using Shutterstock, which is a little bit more of an old school way of doing this. Most people are probably using AI to do it, although I will say that when you upload your books to Amazon now, they will ask you if you do have AI generated content, and I don't know if that is something that is going to be detrimental to you if you're publishing, or if they really don't care and they're just trying to keep track of how much AI generated content they do have on their site. But they will ask that question. So since 6 years ago, we did a book and used Shutterstock at that time, and I don't think AI and AI generated things were as popular as they are today. We're going to go in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to go ahead and do this sort of more old school. So if you haven't used Shutterstock before, go ahead and click over here. I'll go ahead and share my screen with you. I'm not sure what's going to come up when I do share my screen. So it looks like we can go to the Amazon Kindle, or we can go to, we cannot go to Shutterstock from here. So go to the Amazon Kindle first, and I'll show you what we're talking about. This is the bookshelf, my father's bookshelf in Amazon, which will show all of the books that he has available. And I will try to drop a link in the descriptions on the YouTube channel that you can follow in order to find any of this content that we're talking about. This is the book that is coming out. It says it's live, so it may be available now, I'm not sure. But I'll show you also the older book that was put out a few years ago, just because what I did was I wanted them to be somewhat similar. And so I went ahead and patterned the second book very much after the first, but they have been created 6 years apart. So you can see this is a fairly common image that you've seen in ads. As I said, years ago, this was something that was pretty popular style, really. And to be honest, I don't know if this is AI generated. Back in the day, maybe when the technology was really in the beginning phases, or if this was generated via graphic design, just layering photography and different elements. But I called this up and I went on to Shutterstock. Let me see if I can pop over there. So here you can see we are on Shutterstock. So when you go into Shutterstock, you can purchase licenses to use the photographs that you find in here. And there are literally 400 million photographs that you can choose from. And they do also now have an AI generator that you can use to create AI images. In this case, I went in and I just purchased 2 photographs. I only really needed 1. So I think I'll come back later and pick another photograph. Or I may AI generate the next cover that we're working on. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not really sure if that's going to be detrimental to the book being shown on Amazon or not. But Shutterstock's been around forever. If you are a photographer, you also can upload your images to Shutterstock and sell the content. People can pay to license your images to have them done as anything that they want. They can use it for magazine articles, book covers, graphic designs that they need to do, advertising, whatever comes up. In this case, this was the photograph that I chose. And we're going to use the whole photograph as as the book cover. So the book cover will actually be divided in half. What I did is I went to KDP, which is the Amazon publishing section. You can find that out on Amazon, but you also can go and Google KDP templates and ask them for the various size templates. In this case, we're publishing a 6x9 book, and I'm opening my GIMP, which is what I use for most of my graphic design, so that I can show you the template, and then I can show you the design itself that was created, and then talk about the various elements. Interesting. Oh, a window within a window within a window. This thing's gonna start freaking out. Go back over here. So I've committed to standing up a YouTube channel, and that also means that you have to edit videos and things like that. So I'm just learning to do shorter presentations, to create shorter videos so that they're actually a little bit more bite-sized. Later, when I do start doing some live painting, then maybe a little bit more long form. We're also going to be doing some artist interviews coming up too. We're going to put that on a separate channel. So we're going to get very active with this. Let me see if I can actually get this to function while I have the Zoom going. It may be a little bit too much stuff going on to function properly. Hopefully it'll cooperate. I wanted to show you, if you see here, it says paperback 6x9 standard, white paper, PNG, US. This is actually the template. There's two of them here. Okay, this one looks like it's going to be a little bit more, probably easier to see. I think the other one might be a zip file that has to be in zip. So when you download your template, you will get a zip file. When you open the zip file, you'll be choosing what it is that you need to work with, the style, the type of file that you're going to save it as. And this is what the template looks like. So what you're going to be doing is designing in a way that fits inside the pink lines. The pink lines are your danger zones. You want to keep all of your text and images and things like this out of the pink lines. These are cut lines. And it will tell you right here what each thing is. So your black solid line is your trim size. So that's the one that's in the outer part of the pink here. Your blue dash line is your spine fold, and that's what's here in the center. So if you're writing words down the spine, you're going to have to fit them between those two lines. The red area is out of live bleed, so you don't want anything to be in there. It could be cut off. And then you remove this template from the final artwork. Down here is going to be where your barcode is going to go. So you have to keep that in mind when you're designing your book cover as well. And then it gives you a little bit more information of what you're going to do. It gives you your overall dimensions in case you need to make sure that your image that you're downloading to use, you make sure that that fits into these overall dimensions. And if so, it will cover this template. It tells you how wide the spine is. And interestingly enough, when you create this cover template, you actually have to tell them how many pages your book is going to be, because that will determine basically the spine width. So for example, this is a short story book. If this were a 400-page novel, this spine area right here would be a lot thicker, because it would obviously have to accommodate the additional pages that you're going to be putting inside this book. And it would probably make all the dimensions a little bit different. So I started with this template. Let me see if I can just open the file that I actually created in GIMP so you can see the layers. Short stories for the traveler. A GIMP file will be saved as an XCF. Not sure what that stands for, but I just recognize it always as a GIMP file. And you'll notice when you open it, when I open this file, it'll be about the same size as the template. And then I can show you the various layers. Now, I will tell you one thing. We'll see if this file opens or if the computer crashes, because the GIMP file itself is actually very large, especially when you're dealing with these dimensions of 12.5 inches wide and 9.5, 9.25 tall inches. This makes a pretty big file in GIMP. Once you export it into whatever form it's going to take, it will shrink it down to a much smaller file. So in the beginning, it's going to do this where it takes a minute to draw your file. It takes a minute for you to make changes to this file. But once you save it as a different format, if you save it as a PNG, a PDF, I believe for Amazon, you're going to want to save it as a PDF. And one of the reasons why is because PDF locks everything in. If you save it as other formats, it may slightly adjust what you've put together. And I believe, I don't know if they require it to be a PDF to upload. It may give you some other choices, but I just find the PDF to be the most true to what you originally designed. So here you can see the different layers. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see that I still have my paperback template as my bottom layer of this. And that way I made my guidelines. You can see these dotted blue lines. I lined those up on the template. I laid the template down first, and then let me see, I might be able to remove all this. So my template's under here. So you can see where I've placed all my guidelines on this template so that I know as I'm going forward, as long as I'm lining everything else up where these guidelines are, then I should be fine. And I'm not going to worry too much about the barcode because I know that the design is not really being interfered with there. So I started with my large photograph and sized it to fit the template. I think on Shutterstock, you may have photographs that are sized to be able to be made into book covers. I don't know if that's a common thing or a booklet or brochure dimensions so that you don't have to try to stretch it and everything like that. This fit nicely to be able to be both front and back cover. And then what I did was I actually looked at the previous book. I showed you earlier the airplane, the airport, the people dragging the suitcases through the airport and walking through the airport. That was the image of the first book. I chose more airport images and I sent them to my father and I said, which one do you like out of these images that I'm sending to you? With Shutterstock, they will allow you to actually sample photographs. So you could pick out 4 or 5 of them and say, you know, these are ones I want to try. And they will allow you to download those images with a watermark on them. So you can't actually use them, but they're not fully licensed, but you can download a certain number of them as the ones you want to try. And that way you can send them to a client or you can send them to somebody and say, what do you think of these? Or choose one of these to work with. And then you come back and you purchase the license for however many photographs you're going to need. So that way you probably could also pop them into a design and try things out. You're just going to have a watermark on them in the meantime until you come back and purchase them. But what I did was I went to the first book and I essentially looked at the font that we were using and I looked at the placement of everything and just began duplicating that. You know, how was the author put on here? What was the title? How did we organize that? So I went ahead and added the title. I made a blank box to put the description on top of, and also made sure that we had it sort of blocked out over the image so that the text didn't have to compete with the background image, that it could be placed in its own area so that it would stand out well. And then in this case, the text is white against the dark background. The title and the author are also on the spine. And as you can see, well, let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. The title does fit perfectly between the blue lines that are designated as the spine fold. And in this case, I also needed to make sure that with the design, you see that there's kind of built-in lines happening here that fade out lower. I had to make sure that the author's name, you see how it ends right before this part of the design happens, and then in that case, the text would have faded away into that. You see that there's some lines that come down that are part of the design. So rather than have that cut through the text, I had to make sure that this was sized in a way that it could sit on top of that design. And over here, although you can't see it as much, like right here, these lines were darker. You can see this line down here is more like a dark pink, and it was cutting right through this text. So what you can do in that situation is go to the correct layer. This image is on the bottom layer, and this text is on a layer above it. As you can see up here, short stories for the traveler is the top of this design, so therefore it's one of the top layers. So I can go down to this bottom layer and I can do things to this layer. And in this case, what I did was I used this, let's see, it's not visible at the moment, but the airbrush. You can see there down in the list. I can't really keep it open at the moment, but the airbrush. So I went in and did the airbrush and did a lighter color. You can see that color is still there, a super light pink, not quite white, because I didn't want to erase the line that was there. I wanted it to still stay in the line of the design, but I just didn't want it to compete with this text. So I went in and I airbrushed around this area just to lighten it enough that the letters would not have to compete with it. And if you'll notice, the line next to it is about the same color and doesn't compete with the text. So by just going in and airbrushing this slightly so that it matches with this, but lightens it so the text is not competing with this design, it made it work, and also didn't look out of place, because over here, the design naturally fades out a little bit and doesn't compete with this design. But I did not have to airbrush this area. It was already light enough on its own to go ahead and allow this text to not compete with it. It was just right here because you kind of had this double line and a little bit of darkness going up to this yellow where it was competing with the line. I'll slide over here just so you can see the description, and I will go ahead to turn this live stream into a little bit of a commercial. I'll go ahead and read you the description of this book. It says that it is live on Amazon now, so if you're wanting to, if you have an Amazon Prime, you can actually read the book in your Amazon pages, or it is, I haven't quite made it available yet in Kindle version. I'm still working on going through the wickets of making it an ebook. I may have to resize the script and resize the cover to fit into the ebook template. So it's not available yet on ebook. It's only available in print at this time, but I'm going to go ahead and read the description for you. Short Stories for the Traveler Book 2 is intended, as was the first one, to be the perfect book to read as you are traveling, just long enough to enjoy on an average flight. It is a collection of short stories that will not leave you with the cliffhanger you might have reading a longer book. This second collection spans many decades, from the story of a fatherless young boy and his war-widowed mother to a college-age lad finding his way in the world with his notable friend, to the glimpse of life overseas for some young Americans, the restoration of a plane that made history, and finally some nostalgic tales of small-town life and technology. The stories provide entertaining glimpses of life through the eyes of the writer. For a longer read, enjoy the book series Sea Stories of a U.S. Marine, books 1 through 5, or additional traveling stories, Winging It, Motorcycle Adventures, and Winging It Again, Florida to Alaska and back, covering 20 years of traveling adventures on the open road. And although I don't repeat the fact that there is a book 1 of the short stories for the traveler, that's mentioned in the beginning, and I suppose it should have been mentioned in the end as well, but there is a first version of this book available. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just so you can get another look at the cover. And I thank you for stopping in and checking out the live stream as to how to put together a book cover for an Amazon book.